As an autistic person, do you realize that you really have empathy towards others? But at the same time, when you're trying to express that empathy to others, it takes you a while to do it. Um, One of the things that mainstream people think is that autistic people aren't able to understand empathy, which is completely uh, incorrect. In which what happens is that a lot of people with autism, Asperger's, those of us who are neurodiverse, we have we get a lot more information from people, and then we're having problems digesting that. We're having problems processing it. So we're a bit slower to be able to queue back up what we've processed. So there's a delay. Whereas neurotypical people are able to process and come back with their assessment, which in a social setting, people can go back and forth. If one of the problems with autistic people in general, in which is way they diagnose the autism in the first place, is when children are getting along and then the odd one is not getting it. And so then the odd one is ostracized, turned into the black sheep, turned into the weird one, and then everybody starts making fun of the weird one. And then that child has subconscious attitudes towards who they are and how they work in the world. And if the parents don't pick up on that, if the caregivers, the teachers don't pick up on that, that self confidence, that lack of self confidence, is going to keep on building, building, building till the child becomes a young adult and an adult and sticks to themselves and doesn't really share all their expertise. Now, the whole thing is in finding your hidden superpower that the reality of it is that you bring in a lot more information and then you have to break it down and digest it. So one of the things is that uh, I've become a counselor and I'm rather good at it, but sometimes I get triggered because resistant clients, and then they are trying to lash out because I'm able to read them and I go deep when they're not ready to go deep, and then they lash out. Now, so that's not, well, it is a problem with me because, I'm trying to help them and then I'm going too deeply too quick because I'm able to pick up on a bunch of their stuff that they think are still secret, and they don't want to know. They don't want to have to deal with that. They don't want to have to face all those dark secrets that they know that they have, but they don't want anybody else to know. And if you can have a talent to pick that up, now you have to be respectful. And one of the things that you got to do is you got to slow down for them, in which one of the problems with autism is that we're fast in things that they're slow at. We're slow at things that they're fast at. So there's a miscommunication with a lot of social cues from people that are neurotypical. And a lot of the times we can see deep, deep, deep into their hidden secrets, and they don't like that because it makes them feel awkward. So then they lash out at us. So that can be a talent, a possible talent. It's become a talent for me, and it always was a talent for me. But because of my delivery, that talent wasn't able to come to fruition because I wasn't able to be able to communicate that talent to others that I was trying to help. Um, Now I'm getting better at it. So there is a article written in Psychology Today, published March 7th, says how aware are autistic people of others' emotions, in which it talks about let me see. It's key points. It is often assumed that autistic people are unable to process the emotions of others. That's completely false. It's just that we might not be on the same page as other people, and we may be able to diagnose emotions that they aren't able to process, and then we make them feel awkward. In a recent body of research suggests that autistic people are only less skilled at emotional processing than neurotypical people. So that less skilled, that 5% difference in the ability to get a joke. Some people, the neurotypical people, are telling neurotypical jokes. So, and then people are able to get them immediately through their subconscious, in which we have to think about it, we have to process it. And sometimes, because of our literal thinking processes, instead of a lot of what comedy is built off of is not literal, a lot of the times we may not get the joke, but a half hour later, when the crowd is gone, when everybody's over the joke, moved on, we finally figure it out, and then we start laughing. But there's no crowd to we're we're late to the joke, and we're moving. Everybody else has moved on. We finally gotten it. So, however, autistic people may be slower in processing others' emotions and may find it more challenging to do so under pressure. Yes, when it comes to being under pressure, that's one of the causes of our triggers, is that when we're under pressure, there's a lot more information coming in, and our anxiety can go up. When somebody is anxious or depressed, they're being thrown off, they're being triggered. Their IQ points go down roughly 10%, and so you can be 10% dumber when you're under pressure, and then already you're self-conscious about your awkwardness, and then all of a sudden this pressure doubles, and then all of a sudden you get double dumb, and it's not working. So you got to slow it down. You got to slow your roll. You got to understand who you are, what you're all about, and be able to bring it in certain spurts. And I'm old school, so I used to watch Seinfeld. There was a episode where George, who's the lovable loser, he figured out that he wanted to end on a high note, and because the way he would get the high note, but then he would push it and push it and push it until he would fall off a cliff. And so then he found out that he could end on a high note, and he would just get up. It was the version of his mic drop. So he'd do a mic drop, just walk away, and he would even do it at work and just go home because he was ending on a high point. And so that's what we got to look at: is end on a high point. Don't try and beat people over the head with the point, and just move on. And then maybe things will work out a little bit better. Um, Acknowledging these differences could help autistic people and their loved ones communicate more effectively. So, the bottom line is that a lot of these neurotypical people, they talk about, being empathetic and a whole bunch of this empathy and mindfulness and all of this stuff. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them are mindful and empathetic to the people that are neurotypical, the people that they can understand. So that's actually selective empathy, because empathy is being able to look into somebody else and understand where they're coming from, their worldview. That's true empathy, in which people don't typically have the energy for true empathy. They towards people that they understand, they like, and then they have some a little bit more empathy than normal, and then they call that empathy. Um, because they're not being truly tested and truly having to use those talents of empathy in order to figure things out. Like, for instance, you go to a bookstore, there the self-help aisle is giant. Well, you know, why do all these people need this self-help, all these self-help books? When they buy them, are they reading them? Are they actually flowing and using the information about all this self-help? I don't think they are, because you would only need a couple self-help books, and most of the self-help books that need to have been written over 100 years ago. Think and Grow Rich. Everything you need to know about self-help is written about in that book that was written over 100 years ago. But because people don't, the lessons don't stick, they keep on doing and reading instead of acting on what they need to do. And they know what they need to do, they just don't want to do it because it's tough, it hurts, and it takes a lot of work. And people don't want to do that because that's human nature. It's nothing, it's the same with us when we don't want to do what we need to do because they're stuck in our habits. We're guilty of that as well. So you got to get out of your safe space. You got to get into your uncomfortable spaces, and that's the only way you can grow. That's the only way it'll happen. So the bottom line is that don't be too hard on yourself. Number one, uh, be able to accept that growing pain, there's growing pains. So when you're stretching, you got to stretch, and you got to stretch farther than you stretched before in order to get to the next level. And so make it happen. And this is Dan. This is Finding Your Hidden Superpower. You have a hidden superpower, which is understanding deeply people's feelings, their emotions, what they want in life, how they want to be listened to, and you can easily become the listener. You can easily do this. You just got to give yourself some time to do this. You got to explain to them that you may have to think about that. And if they are not, if they're pressing for an answer, you got to back off and you got to say, hey, I have some time. I need some time to think about this, and then I'll come back to you with the best answer you will ever find, because this is my talent. This is what I'm able to do, is think deeply. I don't think shallowly like a lot of other people, and that's just what they do. But I'm a deep thinker, and so give me a second. I'll get back to you, and I'll get back to you with the best answer that I can come up with. So, bottom line, finding your hidden superpower. You can do it. You can find it. Just give yourself a chance and make it happen. Don't compare yourself to others, because you're not like anybody else. Remember, there's only 2.3% of us out there in this world that are autistic, and there's many flavors of autism. So not every autistic person is the same. It's not like having diabetes. It's not like having a physical disease. It isn't. It's a personality difference, and it's not even a disorder. The only reason it can become a disorder is if you're dysfunctional because of it. And that's just because you haven't learned how to use these talents, because they are talents. And sometimes these talents make us look strange, and people are afraid of strange people. They're afraid of people that are unpredictable, because they can't understand you, because they're not taking the time to understand you. So the bottom line is make it happen and have a great day.